What's up, guys and gals? Welcome back to the Nerd Castle for the next episode of our weekend review. My name is Splattercat. Very happy to have you here today as we check out basically what's going on with the channel. If you've never seen this series before, it's basically a short little video log where I sit down with you and we talk about the things going on at the channel. It's basically the spot where I talk about my organizational decisions and why things are happening the way that they're happening on the channel as time goes along. And so anyways, this was enabled by the Patreon backers. This series wasn't really a thing, and then one of the Patreon goals, if you support the channel there, is that when you hit a certain threshold of donations per month, you get a new series. The next one coming up is where I'll sit down and we'll have a podcast type deal with other YouTubers, and I'll probably do that once every couple weeks. I'll sit down with like a YouTuber, and I'll probably start with like the people I know from Roll For It. We'll expand from there, and it's a way for me to get out there and socialize and for me to interact with other YouTubers that you may or may not like. Still, this was backed by the Patreon backers, so thank you for this video series, Patreon backers. And without further ado, let's talk about the stuff going on at the channel, because I think it's going to be sort of interesting coming up in the next few months. I definitely think YouTube is going to be a tiny bit slow the next few months. There's not a lot of big releases that I'm excited about coming out, and that puts me a little bit on my heels, but I think it's a good thing. I was thinking about it organizationally, and I was trying to decide how I wanted to deal with this dead period that's coming up as far as games go. We've had a this year has been non-stop indie games from January all the way through till now. It's been non-stop big indie games, like indie games that are really, really solid. And so that's been a really, really nice wave to ride. It's been very low effort on my part. There's just always been something else coming out. And actually, we're coming up, I've been looking at the release list, and it's a little bit light coming up in the next few weeks, next month or so. And so what that means is that as our series start to dwindle and wane, we'll probably be doing a lot more looks back at things we've already covered. So the chances to get more Slime Ranch are very, very high right now. The chances to get yourself a little bit more Project Zomboid looking pretty good right now. The chances for you to get finally a Metro Last Light series to continue, because I did Metro Redux. I really, really, really wanted to do a Last Light Redux series too, so that I have the whole thing on there for my viewership to watch. Very, very likely that that might happen. Chances are that I may fiddle around. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see with Stalker. Clear Sky kind of scared me because people were really into the first Stalker game, and then I did the series on Clear Sky, and people didn't really seem to be into it. And so I wanted to call a Pripyat, but I'm still a little bit nervous. I got burned when I touched that stove last time, and so it's a little bit scary for me to embark on like a 60-day journey into something when I'm not sure how into it people are going to be. But let's talk about the stuff on the channel right now, so that we can get that all taken care of and out of the way. During this series, I do like to talk about things that are going on behind the scenes with me and my series, so that you understand why I make the decisions I do, or otherwise why things are spaced a certain way. And right now we have way too many games to play. I'm actually running like 6 or 7 active series right now. We just finished off Oklos, which is actually a really, really good thing, because I don't think the game is quite ready for prime time with regards to the balancing. Now, what I've come to understand about this, I talked to other YouTubers about it, and actually after I posted that series, a bunch of other YouTubers were like, dude, how did you get a key? And they were like, there's no way, you can't get a key to that game. That game is like lockdown solid. And what I guess turned out, what happened is I'm not supposed to have a key. Basically what happened is I contacted the developers before they signed to publish with Devolver. And before that, they were just giving keys out and being like, yeah, check the game out, promote it, whatever. And apparently Devolver bought the game, the rights to publish the game anyways, and then from there, they just squelched it and were like, nope, stop sending out keys or whatever. And so nobody else can get a key for it, and I have just this weird Steam key that the devs are using for like beta access and whatnot for their own internal testing. And so there was the series right there. And so honestly, I don't know if that series was, but there was no embargo. I checked, I went back through and I made sure that there was no indication. They said in the email that they gave me a year ago when I got the game or so that go ahead and publish whatever you wanted. And so I did, but I don't think it's quite ready. I definitely think they're fiddling with things. And I've noticed like the first build of the game that I played was better than the build 6 months later. And so I definitely think that like the publisher and everything, they're messing with stuff and they're moving things around. It may not have been ready to be released. And so I feel kind of bad about doing a series on it, because I'm not really sure if I was supposed to, or if there's supposed to be like a gag order on it or whatever. There was no embargo on the key they gave me though, so I'm in the free and clear. Still, I like the game a lot. I love the concept of the game. I love how goofy it is and how it doesn't take itself seriously. And it's a game about just like raising mayhem and destroying stuff. And so I'm glad we got to do a little series on it. I like the unlock system. I like how they got the special heroes, the special philosophers. You can trade in like 10 peons to get yourself a way cooler character. I like everything about that game. I just think there's little balance things that need to be sorted out with regards to its organization right now. But hey, the game's not even out yet, so that's not even a complaint you can make, because you can't even purchase the game or get it, and so it's still in development. These things are all actively going to change as time goes along, but that's just my 2 cents about what I've seen so far. The elephant in the room, or the orc in the room. The orc boy in the room. We've got Total Warhammer coming out this week. I actually posted the first video yesterday. I've actually got to think about when this video is going to go live, and so you guys think that never mind, it doesn't matter. So that my timing is correct, this video was recorded like way before, and so I got to figure out when the other video is going to go out, because Warhammer hasn't gone up at this point yet, but it will pretty soon. And so anyways, Total Warhammer, I'm pleased with it so far. I think it represents kind of a streamlining. I've noticed that as Total War goes along, and I'll be upfront about it, I don't like Total War that much. I find it to be a bit too much war game and a bit too little strategy. I like things somewhere. I wish there was a game that was somewhere in between like Crusader Kings and Total War, because Total War, where I liked Total War the most was back in Rome Total War times, where there was still a lot of diplomacy. There was still a little bit of grand strategy there, like you were still kind of marrying people and messing around and trying to figure out ways to solidify your rule. I find that nowadays Total War has become very, very streamlined, and I think that's hurt the series. Now it becomes a better arcade game. Like, it's a really, really cool, huge battle game now that's a lot of fun. If you're looking for like a battlefield simulation, it's a great game, but I like the overworld map quite a bit better and kind of the intrigue that goes into all of that. And I've noticed that that end of the game has been tapered off a little bit as time goes along, and the part of the game that focuses on the combat has been expanded. And so anyways, Total War Warhammer is about what I would expect so far from what I've seen. I've got about 8 hours in right now. I've played a big chunk of the Orc campaign, and during my time spent with the Orc campaign, I've enjoyed almost every moment of it because they've streamlined it down to the point where it makes sense. So Warhammer Tabletop is not like it's a strategically relevant game, but there's no like overmap, there's no diplomacy or anything like that. And so I think the game very much follows the tone of the tabletop, in that it's about getting out there, getting dirty, and just smashing some Yumis, you know? Getting out there and being like, me and me boys is coming to smash you gates. That's what it's all about. And I'm having a really, really good time with it so far. I think that they've streamlined the areas that need to be streamlined to make it thematically relevant for Warhammer. I almost said 40K. To make it relevant for Warhammer Fantasy. And at the same time, there's still enough depth there. I think they've expanded the RPG aspects quite a bit with the equipment and the leveling up and the talent trees and stuff like that to make it interesting enough to stand apart from the other series, like Napoleon, where those are very much trying to be like historically accurate and whatnot. I've only played the one army so far. I find that this is a game where you need to hyper-focus on one army for a little bit until you learn them. And then if you jump around with a bunch of different campaigns for a bunch of different armies, I just get overwhelmed with the minutia. And so, I'm having fun with Orcs so far. I can't speak much more than that, but I found that the game is cool. There are some economy issues. The economy is a little bit weird. Like, you gotta play it differently than you play other Total War games, where other Total War games are very much about balancing your civics and your buildings in the areas that you've conquered. Whereas with regards to Total War, and maybe it's just because I've played the Orcs, it seems like income is difficult to come by, and so you have to raid quite a bit more in order to make. You might have a deficit for a large proportion of the game, and you just need to nonstop wog on fools and just steal their stuff over and over and over again. And because you're neighboring with the dwarves, this means that they constantly have grudges with you, which means they're always going to be declaring war to clear those grudges, because they actually get civic penalties for not getting revenge on people who have attacked them. I do like how every army plays very, very differently. Like, the Orcs have their fightiness, which means they have to constantly be in a state of war, otherwise their faction just falls apart. I like how the dwarves don't really have to be at war, but they accumulate kind of these grudges, or like this desire for revenge behind the scenes for everybody that's ever slighted them. And as those stack up, you lose credibility with the dwarvish and like nobility and whatnot. And so eventually you're going to have to declare a war, if only to clear out all those grudges that you have against certain factions. And actually can be kind of catastrophic for the dwarves, because if they accumulate too many grudges at the same time, what ends up happening is they'll have to declare on like 5 different factions at the same time to clear those out, so that they don't end up with rebellions. And it's a very, very interesting thing. The humans basically play the way you would expect them to play. They play basically like any other faction in a Warhammer game. Haven't played Undead yet. Haven't played around with Undead yet, but as I understand it, they feed off of corruption that's inside the zones of other people. And so if the other factions do not spend a lot of time clearing their corruption and their undead infestation, they can actually replenish their troops while they're inside other factions' areas. And so basically it's your fault if you end up with an undead uprising in your area, because you could have spent time clearing that out, but instead you just let it build up, and now you've got zombies and whatnot joining the vampire army to fight you in your own lands. Kind of an interesting mechanic that I've seen so far, and I think the game's going to be a lot of fun. I don't think it's for everyone. I think people that are really into hardcore grand strategy, like Europa Universalis and things like that, are probably not going to like the overmap quite so much, because it's very arcadey. but at the same time, if you're into battle map simulators, it's pretty fun. I'm still learning the ins and outs of how to manipulate everything, and I'm learning along the way. And as I said in the first episode, I'm not very good at strategy games. I'm going to be learning as I go. Total War I haven't played since Rome 2. When Rome 2 first came out, I played it for like 3 or 4 hours and didn't really like it very much and ended up just kind of shelving it. I think the last Total War game I got really into was Shogun 2, and I played Shogun 2 probably 30 or 40 hours straight, and then I shelved it as well. The one that I spent like huge amount of times playing was Shogun 1, the first Rome Total War. The first Rome Total War I played a ridiculous amount with Scipii and Brutii and Cassii or whatever the factions were. I liked them all. I usually played the Brutii. Aside from that, I have been uploading the streams. I noticed that with the last video, I felt like the feedback was pretty positive. I felt like people were into that idea. They were stoked about the fact that I was going to back up my streams on YouTube. I'm going to start putting those into a playlist folder that's going to be featured on the channel page so that people can get after those whenever they want to see them and they can just watch them in succession. I think Subnautica is going to be the first one where I actually post every single part. And from here on out, I'm going to try and keep it real with that. I do think it's a good idea to post those on YouTube. It helps promote the stream and keep it healthy. I've noticed that there has been kind of a passive increase in follows and engagement since I started putting stuff up on YouTube, and so I think that's a good thing, especially since I feel like Twitch streaming is going to play a prominent part in the future of the channel. I've noticed things in LP in general have been very, very slow. I've noticed a lot of channels kind of moving towards things, for example, like what Dragast does. I've noticed a lot of channels going from like long cut LPs, like 2005 style, like what I do, and I've noticed a lot of people are starting to move over to edited content now, where it's like videos that are curated for like the funny parts and the action, and then you get what you get and you're on your way. And it's definitely a different style than I'm used to. It's not a thing that I'm good at, but I have noticed a lot of people lately kind of, you know, just being like, well, I don't know, my numbers are bad, so I'm thinking I'm just going to start editing and doing, I've noticed a lot of channels doing that stuff, and so I have no interest in editing. That's the truth of the matter. Is I hate video editing. It is boring. I know how to do it. It bores me to tears. I don't enjoy it at all. I didn't get into this to video edit. I got into this to just play video games and have a good time. And so if it ever comes down to it, I will probably just use the YouTube channel as a place to do like edited reviews, like maybe 2 or 3 times a week, kind of Angry Joe style. And then after that, I'll just put the stream VODs up. But now is not that time, obviously. I'm kind of watching and waiting to see what happens over the course of the summer before I make any major organizational choices. Right now, I'm trying to stream more while maintaining the same schedule on YouTube, which has gotten pretty hectic. It's a lot of time spent, no lie. I've definitely been burning the candle at both ends, but I think it'll be worth it because it allows me to appraise what this is all doing and where it's all going by doing 2 things at the same time. And honestly, I like Twitch because it's a backup plan for me. It makes it so that I'm going to continue being in an online medium without losing my job or anything like that if anything ever goes south with YouTube. And so I would like to welcome you to come to the stream. It's a lot of fun. The stream is a blast. It's Twitch TV/SplatterCatGaming. You can hang out there. You can follow. We've got subscription goals and all kinds of fun stuff going in. I have been reformatting the channel and getting it all set up to look a lot nicer and a little bit more professional as time goes along. But aside from that, it's been a pretty fun little project, and I'm looking forward to seeing all of you there. Our numbers have gone up. I mean, I think 2 months ago I was doing like 85 to 100 viewers a stream, and now we're doing 450 to 500 every stream. It's blown up like crazy, and frankly, one of the big things is like, I feel like on YouTube, with my skill sets, I'm never going to be like one of the premier guys, and that's fine. Like, I'm not upset about it. It's not a thing that I waste my time late at night pining after. But on Twitch, I think that my broadcast experience and my ability to just keep going and going and going DJ style, kind of like a radio DJ, because that's what I used to do a long time ago, I feel like my ability to do that puts me in a very good position on Twitch, and I actually feel like I could be a dude on Twitch, you know, like somebody on Twitch, essentially, rather than just kind of creating LPs and whatnot here. I'm not really sure where it's all going to go right now. As you can tell, I have doubts and things like that, and I'm really kind of trying to move dots and tittles around to figure out what I want to do in the future. I think mainly part of it is that just like I'm a little bit bored too. I need to shake up the formula. You know how it is when you do a job for a long time, like you do a thing for a really long time and you get into like that groove, and one day you wake up and you're just like, I kind of want to shake things up right now, just get my tay-tay on and, you know, shake it off or something like that. And so I'm thinking about new things that I can play around with just to make the formula a little bit more fresh and a little bit more fun for me as a creator. Goliath. I like Goliath a lot. Goliath is a game that has flaws and has like little issues and things like that that need to be dealt with. But at the same time, I love the concept of the game so much that I just keep playing it. I just keep playing it and having a good time with it because, frankly, the game is a lot of fun to fiddle around with. Goliath, if you haven't seen it yet, it's basically a top-down kind of Diablo-esque game where you play a guy who crash lands his plane on a planet or a dimension that he's never seen before, and so he's trying to find his way back to his co-pilot, and he does this by building all kinds of like steampunk suits out of like wood and stone and stuff like that, because all of the creatures on this new planet are enormous. They're like 25-foot rat men and stuff like that, and so in order to make himself safe, he's got to make big robot suits, and the robot suits have upgrades and different things you can do to them and different modifications you can make. It's a lot of fun. The progression of the game is very interesting, and aside from the bugs I've seen so far, I've enjoyed my time with the game. I think the combat is a little bit shallow and could be ironed out a little bit better, and they can make it a little bit more weighty and feel a little bit better. But aside from that, I don't have a whole lot of complaints about the game. I've been enjoying the sense of humor and the way that the game moves along. It does have a lot of quests and things. I see it saying it's probably going to stay on the channel for a little while longer. I don't know what I would replace it with at this point, and so we'll probably go in and we'll probably play it until I feel like people have no longer, you know, felt like watching it or whatever. I do actually like the game quite a bit, though. I think I will keep it around. Space Pirates and Zombies 2, wasn't so sure about that one. I definitely think with Space Pirates and Zombies 2, they've made some very definite changes to the formula, which is kind of interesting. I think that the first game was absolutely kind of a unique, challenging, very, very strange game that got a lot of people into it. In the second game, they've done a lot of streamlining and they've done a lot of formatting to make the game flow better. They've made it very, very arcadey. But I'm kind of interested in seeing how it fleshes out right now, because I feel like it's lost something a little bit. I don't know what to say about it. I do think it's a good game compared to other indie games, but at the same time, it feels like they've lost something that made the first game so unique and so interesting, and I can't quite put my finger on what it is. And so, I don't know. I like the game. It seems like it's had kind of a lukewarm reception here on the YouTube channel. I thought it might do a little bit better just because the game was so popular when it first came out. The first game was good and I enjoyed it, and I felt like I missed an opportunity there, and so I wanted to play the second one. Don't know how long we'll be keeping Spaz 2 though. It is in early access, so over time things are going to change. It just kind of doesn't have that same hook that the first game had, and I'm not really sure how to describe it aside from that. It's not a bad game objectively, and it's in early access, so there's time to change. It just hasn't gripped me in the exact same way that the first game did, and I'm not totally sure why just yet. I'm sure it'll come to me as time goes along, but words are escaping me at the moment, and I haven't really been able to lock it on down. And I've heard the same sentiment from a lot of other YouTubers too. There's a lot of guys that I've talked to about their Spaz series, and they're like, yeah, I'm just not so sure about it right now. For some reason, it's just not grabbing me. And I was like, you know what? I got the exact same impression from that game, and I don't know what to tell you. It is odd. So Spaz 2 might not be long for the channel. We might revisit it once it goes into like its 1.0 release. I'm going to keep an eye on it as it develops and just kind of see what happens with its overall trajectory, but I'm just not really sure what to do with it for right now. Doom. Doom is satisfactory. I'm excited about Doom. Doom is a game where I expected the worst and received something that was far better than what I expected. Now, granted, my expectations were so low that I wasn't totally sure, you know, how could it not succeed after Rage? Rage was one of those games that was like, kind of on the edge. I didn't hate it like other people hated it, but it definitely was not like an amazing game. It was probably like a 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10 playable if you got it for like $5. I did like the setting, but much other than that, it wasn't that great of a game. Doom, I expected the worst, and from it, I got far more than I expected. I haven't really understood a lot of the reviews I've been seeing for it. I definitely think that there's a disconnect between players and the press. I've noticed a number of major press avenues giving it like 6s and 7s out of 10s, and that doesn't make sense to me. I don't understand that. That scoring seems a tad brutal considering the game is essentially what it set out to be. It was looking to revitalize the original Doom formula while at the same time retrofitting the graphics and making everything feel good, and they did a fantastic job. And it's weird because it's obvious that they used a lot of the same design premise that they used for Wolfenstein, and yet it's being panned, and I'm not really sure. I guess a 7 out of 10 isn't really being panned, but generally from everybody I've talked to, they've liked it a lot. And then from the press, there's been this disturbing trend to really burn the game, and I'm not really too positive why that is. It's essentially the same thing as the Wolfenstein games, which everybody seemed to love. Those got really, really good scores. It's the same thing as the Wolfenstein remakes, except in the Doom setting, and with a few things to make it more true to Doom, like the secrets that are hidden all over the place and the big sprawling maps that are easy to get lost in. I am not really sure where that disconnect came from, but I can say from my corner, as a Doom 1 and Doom 2 and Brutal Doom fan, I've enjoyed it a lot. I've thought that the game is a fantastic representation of what you would expect if you were trying to retrofit and make an old series more interesting. And so I don't really know what to say when it comes to fighting what the mainstream press has said. It's a strange place to be in. Niflheim. We're probably going to leave Niflheim behind for a little bit. I felt like people weren't quite as into it as we got into the later parts of the series, and I felt like there was a lot of time spent just sort of farming things out. If there's a massive outcry about it, I may go ahead and do a few more episodes just to see if we can come to some resolution. But the game moves very, very slowly, and it's hard to have any advancement in the course of one episode. At the same time, I highly recommend that you pick it up for yourself if you're into sandbox games that are kind of unique. It's a weird little game, and it stands by itself, much like Craft the World did. It's a game that's hard to describe to people until you've actually played it yourself, because it's drawing from a lot of different places. And so anyways, check out Niflheim. Get the game for yourself if you wanted to go a little bit further. I do recommend the game. I thought I had a lot of fun with it. The combat's a little bit janky, but aside from that, it's a fun little sandbox title. Planet Centauri. Planet Centauri, I don't know. I'm having trouble finding direction with Planet Centauri. Like, I'm not sure what the game wants me to do next, aside from dig to the bottom of the map and find rarer resources and bang it out at the same time. I've been a little bit disturbed by the trend from people saying it's a Terraria clone. Just because it's 2D and it has base building and stuff like that and digging, I don't think that qualifies it. It's definitely Terraria inspired. I would say that it definitely needs to go about, like, differentiating itself as a title. I know that the developers are planning to make it into kind of like a pet simulator where you get lots of pets and you train them, and there's lots of like magic spells a la Morrowind that you can custom create and stuff like that, where they're trying to make it a bit more sandboxy, where a lot of the stuff is customizable and buildable by the community. But other than that, so far, the concept that they've got going is good. Planet Centauri I released too early, though. Planet Centauri was supposed to go out on the release date of the game, and then surprise, surprise, on the morning of the release, the developers pushed it back by 3 weeks or 4 weeks right after my videos went live. And so technically it's kind of a series that's not supposed to exist on the channel. I wouldn't have released it had I known that it was going to get pushed back, because I had the episodes, I recorded those about a month ago, and they'd just been sitting on my hard drive waiting for the release. I was going to put them out a couple days before the release, and unfortunately the mistiming from an organizational standpoint hurts, but what are you going to do? So I don't know what's going to happen with Planet Centauri. It may stay, it may go. I have no real plan for it right now. I'm kind of just playing it off the cuff. Banner Saga 2, it's getting completed. That's all you need to know. It's a fantastic game. I don't care if it's not that popular on the channel. I like it enough to where it's staying, and I don't have much more to say about that. It's one of those fantastic examples of gaming that I think needs to be on the internet and needs to be shown off. And I think it's a betrayal of the indie genre not to play it. And so that's all I have to say about that. It will be staying. We are out of time for right now. This is the end of the weekend review series. My name is Splattercat. Thank you for stopping on in. This series was created by the Patreon backers. And if you wanted to get more series, be sure you check out that link down below. By supporting, you're going to get access to the next tier, which means that we're going to have a new series, which is a sit-down powwow podcast with me and other YouTubers. It should be a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to doing it. So anyways, I'll see you all in future episodes of the Weekend Review. Bye, everybody, and I will see you all there. Thanks for stopping in.